Good morning, everyone. In a world full of noise, opinions, and distractions, there's one simple yet powerful path to true growth and inner peace. Focus only on yourself and stay silent. In a world that constantly pulls your attention outward, the ability to turn inward is a rare and powerful skill. Focusing on yourself does not mean becoming isolated or self-absorbed. It means understanding that your time, energy, and mental space are limited, and the best return on investment happens when those resources are directed toward your own growth. Far too often, people waste their lives trying to fix others, impress others, or compete with others. But the real transformation begins the moment you realize that the only competition that matters is the person you were yesterday. When you focus on yourself, you gain clarity. You begin to notice your own patterns, your habits, triggers, strengths, and weaknesses. This self-awareness is the foundation of growth. It allows you to identify what needs improvement without judgment and to build a roadmap tailored to your life, not someone else's expectations. Instead of chasing someone else's definition of success, you create your own. This shift in perspective empowers you to live with intention and direction rather than drifting through life on autopilot. Self-focus also brings emotional stability. The more you understand yourself, the less reactive you become to the chaos around you. You begin to respond instead of react. You stop getting caught up in petty arguments or the need to prove yourself. You realize that other people's opinions, whether praise or criticism, have nothing to do with your worth. And when you operate from a calm, centered place, you make better decisions, attract better energy, and live a more peaceful life. Additionally, focusing on yourself teaches you discipline. It takes commitment to stop scrolling through social media and instead spend that time reading, working out, studying, or meditating. It takes effort to choose delayed gratification over instant pleasure. But the more you invest in your own development, the more natural these choices become. You begin to crave growth, challenge, and purpose, and these are the elements that build a resilient, fulfilled life. Another benefit of self-focus is that it helps you eliminate unnecessary drama. When you're deeply committed to your own path, you don't have time to gossip, compete, or envy others. You become too busy working on your own goals to be distracted by the noise. And people will notice that. They may not understand it, but they will respect it. You stop seeking external validation because you find internal purpose. And when you no longer depend on the opinions of others, you become free. Focusing on yourself also helps you measure your success differently. You stop looking at what others have or what they're doing, and you start measuring your progress based on your own values. Did you show up today? Did you keep your word? Did you grow in even the smallest way? These become the new metrics of success, and over time, those small daily wins compound into something extraordinary. This inward focus fuels consistency. It's easy to be motivated when others are watching, but true growth happens when no one is clapping for you. When you stay disciplined day after day in silence, you begin to build trust with yourself, and that trust becomes confidence. You no longer need hype or momentum from the outside. Your own progress becomes the fire that keeps you going. Ultimately, self-focus is the most empowering decision you can make. It is not about ignoring others. It's about prioritizing what you can control. You can't control how people treat you. You can't control the circumstances life throws your way. But you can control how you respond, how you grow, and what you choose to do with your time. And the more you master that control, the more powerful you become. In today's hyper-connected world, silence is misunderstood. Many equate silence with weakness, submission, or passivity, as if the loudest voice always wins. But that's far from the truth. In reality, silence is one of the most underrated forms of power. It is deliberate, strategic, and intentional. When used correctly, silence allows you to observe clearly, respond wisely, and preserve your energy for what truly matters. Those who master silence understand that not everything deserves a reaction, and not every moment calls for words. Silence grants you control. In conversations, silence gives you the upper hand. When emotions run high, staying quiet gives you a moment to think before speaking. A moment that can prevent regret, misunderstanding, or escalation. People often feel compelled to fill silence with impulsive words, and in doing so reveal more than they intend. But when you remain silent, you stay unpredictable. You don't reveal your thoughts, your plans, or your vulnerabilities unless you choose to. That is real power. The power of restraint. Beyond social interaction, silence cultivates inner strength. It allows you to detach from the chaos of the outside world and reconnect with your inner world. In silence, you begin to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You process your emotions, clarify your goals, and strengthen your sense of direction. Silence creates space, mental and emotional, for self-reflection and alignment. This space is where personal growth occurs, because it is impossible to grow when you are constantly distracted by external noise. Staying silent also shields you from unnecessary judgment. The more you talk about your dreams, your problems, your next move, the more you invite opinions, criticism, and resistance. Not everyone wants to see you win. Not everyone will understand your vision. That's why silence is a form of self-protection. When you keep your plans to yourself, you maintain control over your path, you grow quietly, build quietly, win quietly, and then let your results speak for themselves. People respect outcomes. Noise fades, but results last. There's also wisdom in silence. You learn more by listening than by speaking. When you're quiet, you're able to read the room, understand people's motives, and see patterns that others miss. You develop emotional intelligence by observing before reacting. Many problems escalate because people speak too soon and listen too little. Silence teaches patience, and with patience comes understanding. In a world that rushes to react, the person who waits, listens, and responds with intention stands out. Silence enhances self-discipline. It takes real strength to resist the urge to prove yourself, defend yourself, or announce your every move. Discipline isn't just about action. It's also about inaction. Choosing what not to say, what not to reveal, and when not to engage. This kind of restraint sharpens your focus and strengthens your will. You start to realize that the more you talk, the more you scatter your energy. Silence helps you conserve that energy and redirect it toward productive goals. Furthermore, silence can be intimidating in a powerful way. When you walk in silence, but act with purpose, people notice. They may not know what you're thinking, but they sense that something is different. That uncertainty makes them curious, cautious, even respectful. You don't need to be loud to be heard. Presence, energy, and results speak louder than words ever could. Silence, paired with consistent action, becomes a force that demands attention without ever raising its voice. Silence. Silence brings peace. Life becomes lighter when you stop reacting to everything, when you stop explaining yourself to everyone, and when you stop participating in pointless conversations. Silence allows you to reclaim your time, your focus, and your peace of mind. It gives you room to breathe, think, and grow uninterrupted. In that quiet space, you find strength, clarity, and freedom. And that's why silence isn't weakness. It's a silent form of mass. External noise is everywhere. It comes from social media, news outlets, gossip, unsolicited opinions, comparisons, and even well-meaning advice. We are constantly bombarded by voices trying to tell us who we should be, what we should care about, and how we should live. The problem is, most of these voices are distractions. They drown out your inner voice, the one that truly knows what's best for you. If you don't learn to tune out the external noise, you will spend your life chasing goals that aren't even yours, living for approval you don't need, and doubting yourself when you should be building confidence. Ignoring the noise is not about being arrogant or dismissive. It's about filtering what matters from what doesn't. You cannot absorb every opinion, every comment, every trend, and expect to stay focused. At some point, you have to decide what input adds value to your life and what input is simply static. Your mind is like a garden. If you let weeds of negativity, comparison, and criticism grow wild, they will choke out your creativity, peace, and ambition. You must be intentional about what you let in. Comparison is one of the loudest forms of external noise. It tricks you into measuring your journey against someone else's highlight reel. You see their success, their lifestyle, their milestones, and if you're not careful, you start to question your own path. But you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. You don't see their struggles, their failures, or the sacrifices they've made. Comparing yourself to others is a thief of joy and clarity. When you ignore the noise, you regain focus on your own progress and appreciate how far you've come. Criticism is another form of noise that must be handled carefully. There will always be people who doubt you, misunderstand you, or project their fears onto you. Some criticism is useful and constructive, but much of it is rooted in insecurity, envy, or ignorance. If you listen to every negative comment, You start to believe limitations that aren't even real. The truth is, people who are loudest with opinions are often the ones doing the least. Strong people don't waste time tearing others down. They're too busy building themselves up. Even praise can be a distraction if you're not careful. When you get addicted to compliments or applause, you start to perform for others rather than live for yourself. You begin to crave attention instead of seeking alignment. This makes your self-worth dependent on external approval, which is fragile and ever-changing. The same people who cheer for you today might criticize you tomorrow. That's why the only lasting validation must come from within. Praise is nice, but purpose is better. Don't let the noise of compliments inflate your ego or derail your discipline. Learning to ignore external noise also strengthens your intuition. The more you quiet the outside world, the more clearly you can hear your inner guidance. You begin to trust your own judgment. You stop second-guessing every move. You start acting from clarity, not confusion. Most people know what they need to do. They're just afraid to do it because of what others might think or say. But when you stop caring about outside opinions, you start living in alignment with your own truth, and that's when your life starts to change. This discipline of tuning out the noise creates mental freedom. You become more focused, more peaceful, and more productive. You're no longer pulled in 10 different directions. You set your own pace. You create your own standards. You define success on your own terms. And in that mental stillness, you unlock creativity, strength, and momentum that were previously buried under the weight of other people's expectations. Finally, ignoring external noise is a sign of maturity. It means you've reached a point where your peace matters more than popularity, your growth matters more than gossip, and your vision is louder than the distractions around you. You learn that not every comment needs a reaction, not every trend needs your attention, and not every voice deserves space in your mind. When you master this mindset, you become unshakable, focused on your mission, undisturbed by noise, and deeply connected to the life you're building. In a time when everyone is eager to talk about what they're going to do, it's easy to forget that words alone mean very little. Promises, declarations, and intentions have become currency in conversations, but none of them hold true value without follow-through. Anyone can speak about big goals, ambitious plans, or a vision for success, but only a few will actually put in the daily work required to make those words real. And in the end, it is not what you say that defines you, but what you prove. Results are silent, but their impact is undeniable. When you let your results speak for you, you eliminate the need to convince people. You stop trying to explain yourself, justify your goals, or prove your worth through words. Instead, your actions and achievements do the talking. Whether it's improving your skills, transforming your lifestyle, launching a business, or reaching a personal milestone, when others see the result, the conversation changes. You earn respect, not because you said you would, but because you actually did. That kind of respect is earned, not requested. Talking too much about your goals can sometimes drain the energy that should be used to achieve them. When you announce your plans to the world, it can give you a premature sense of accomplishment, as if just saying it somehow brings you closer to it. But speaking is easy. Working in silence is hard. It takes discipline to keep your head down and grind while no one notices. It takes strength to stay focused when there's no applause, no attention, and no recognition. But that quiet work builds unshakable confidence. There's also a level of credibility that only results can give you. In any field, whether it's fitness, business, education, or personal development, people listen differently to someone who's walked the walk. You don't need to argue your opinion when your life is evidence of your philosophy. People trust what they can see. Results show that you've done more than talk. You've endured, sacrificed, learned, and earned, and no speech can replicate that kind of weight. It's the difference between noise and proof. Letting your results speak also protects your vision. When you talk too early or too often, you expose your goals to unnecessary doubt, jealousy, and criticism. People might discourage you, compete with you, or even try to sabotage your efforts. But when you move in silence and let results do the speaking, you catch people off guard. You don't tell them what's coming. You show them when it's already done. And by then, there's no room left for doubt. Your success becomes undeniable, not because they heard about it, but because they saw it. The results silence doubters. Many times, the people around you won't believe in your dreams until you turn them into reality. They may mock you, underestimate you, or ignore you altogether. That's okay. You don't need to argue, explain, or beg for support. All you need is to keep working. Every hour you invest in your growth is building a statement stronger than any comeback. When the results come, the same people who doubted you will have no choice but to acknowledge your progress, even if they never say it aloud. In the process of building results, you also transform yourself. You gain discipline, resilience, and a deeper sense of self-worth. You don't just get the external rewards, you become someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. This internal growth is the foundation of long-term success. It can't be faked or fast-tracked. You earn it through effort, time, and consistency. And when you reach the point where your identity is built on evidence rather than promises, you become a person others naturally look to for inspiration. Ultimately, results create a quiet confidence. You no longer feel the need to brag, compare, or explain. You understand that people will notice, not because you told them, but because your results speak volumes. Whether they say it or not, they see your progress. And the beauty of letting results speak louder than words is this: your success becomes your voice, your actions become your argument, and your life becomes your proof. Discipline is often misunderstood. People tend to associate it with external order, showing up on time, meeting deadlines, maintaining routines. But true self-discipline runs much deeper. It's not about how you perform in public or how others perceive your habits. It's about what you choose to do when no one's watching. Real discipline is forged in private, in those quiet, unseen moments when you have every reason to quit, to procrastinate, to give in, but you don't. It's about the choices you make when only your conscience is there to witness them. What you do in private sets the tone for what you become in public. The late night study sessions, the early morning workouts, the decision to stay in and work rather than go out and be distracted. These are the invisible victories that shape your identity. They're not glamorous, they don't earn likes or applause, but they build habits, character, and consistency. And over time, those private acts of discipline compound into a version of yourself that is sharper, stronger, and more focused than ever before. Most people want success, but few are willing to endure the silence, loneliness, and repetition that discipline demands. There's no audience when you choose to stay accountable to your goals. No one celebrates the night you say no to distractions. No one claps when you push through exhaustion and keep going. But that's the point. Discipline isn't built by praise. It's built by perseverance. It's about doing the right thing over and over again, especially when no one's there to validate you. There's a special kind of freedom that comes from mastering yourself in private. You no longer need external pressure to stay on track. You don't need someone to remind you, push you, or motivate you. You become self-driven. You become dependable to yourself. And when you can trust yourself to show up day in and day out, regardless of how you feel, you unlock a deeper level of power. That's when you stop hoping for results and start expecting them, because you've already done the work when no one was watching. Private discipline builds internal credibility. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, waking up early, sticking to your goals, staying off distractions, you reinforce your belief in your own strength. You develop confidence not from words, but from proof. And that confidence is quiet, humble, and unshakable. It's not rooted in ego, it's rooted in evidence. It comes from knowing that you faced yourself in the mirror in silence and chosen growth over comfort, time, and In contrast, people who rely only on external motivation often struggle with consistency. They show up when others are watching, but fall apart when the spotlight fades. Their progress is fragile because it's built on outside validation instead of internal commitment. That's why private discipline is so essential. It teaches you that progress is your responsibility. No one else can do the reps, write the pages, or resist the temptations for you. It's your job and yours alone. The truth is, private discipline is rarely comfortable. It demands sacrifices that no one else sees. It can feel lonely and at times even pointless, especially when results aren't immediate. But that's where most people give up. The disciplined keep going. They understand that what happens in the dark eventually brings light, that the grind, the sweat, the choices made behind closed doors, they all lead somewhere. They trust the process, even when it's thankless, because they know that silent discipline will one day bring loud rewards. And so, while others talk about their goals, the discipline are building theirs in silence. While others wait for motivation, the discipline create momentum through effort. While others watch the clock, the discipline make every minute count. And the key to all of it is what happens in the private hours when no one is watching and every choice matters. Because it's there in the quiet that greatness begins to take shape. One of the greatest freedoms you'll ever experience is the moment you stop needing validation from others. For most people, approval is an invisible addiction, subtle but powerful. They adjust their behavior, mute their personality, and even abandon their goals just to be accepted. They base their worth on how they are perceived. But here's the truth. The constant need for validation is a trap that keeps you from living authentically. The more you seek to please everyone, the further you drift from your real self. Validation becomes dangerous when it becomes a requirement. When your self-worth is built on the opinions, reactions, or praise of others, you live in constant performance mode. You're always on edge, trying to impress, fit in, or be liked. You start censoring your ideas, watering down your truth, and hiding your flaws. You become a version of yourself tailored to please, not to thrive. That's not freedom. That's quiet imprisonment, because your confidence can be shattered the moment approval is withdrawn. The problem with chasing validation is that it never ends. Today they may applaud you. Tomorrow they may ignore you. People's opinions change like the weather. If you rely on them for your sense of self, you'll constantly be adapting, shifting, and second-guessing. Your identity will be tied to something you can't control. But when you learn to validate yourself, to stand firmly in who you are, regardless of external feedback, you become grounded. You stop shrinking for anyone. You show up as yourself without apology. Self-direction is not arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about knowing you don't need someone else's permission to believe in yourself. It means understanding your own value without needing it to be confirmed by likes, compliments, or applause. It means that your success is still meaningful even if no one claps for it. That your healing is still real even if no one notices it. That your progress is valid even if it's quiet. You don't need a crowd to know you're growing. When you stop needing validation, you make better decisions. You choose the job, the partner, the path, not because it looks good to others, but because it feels right to you. You stop following trends and start following truth. You become bolder with your boundaries. You say no without guilt. You take risks without needing everyone's agreement. You stop over-explaining, over-apologizing, and over-justifying. You give yourself permission to live fully without always asking, will they approve? Some people won't understand your journey, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to. Your growth may make them uncomfortable. Your silence may confuse them. Your independence may offend them. But your life is not a group project. You don't need consensus to evolve. Seeking validation from people who haven't walked your path or done your work will only keep you stuck. The truth is, most of the people whose approval you seek are still struggling to validate themselves. It's in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when no one's cheering, when no one's offering praise, that you build real confidence. Confidence rooted in self-validation doesn't rise and fall with public opinion. It's stable, it's strong, it's built through commitment, reflection, and integrity. You start becoming your own biggest supporter, your own inner coach. You begin to celebrate your progress in private, to believe in your voice even when it's not echoed by others. That's the power of being whole within. Eventually, the need for validation fades. You no longer seek approval because you've already approved of yourself. You know your intentions, your effort, your truth, and that's enough. You stop being driven by who notices and start being driven by purpose. You stop performing and start living. And when that happens, the irony is this: the less you seek validation, the more people respect you. Why? Because authenticity is rare. And those who don't need approval often become the ones most admired for living life on their own terms. In a world that constantly encourages loudness, loud opinions, loud actions, loud lifestyles, silence is often misunderstood as weakness. But real power doesn't always need to announce itself. In fact, silence can be one of the most strategic strengths a person can master. It is in silence that observation sharpens, discipline deepens, and emotional intelligence matures. The ability to stay silent in the right moments doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you are wise enough to know when speaking is unnecessary. Silence gives you the advantage of listening, not just to others, but to yourself. When you're silent, you notice things others miss. You hear what's said beneath the surface. You catch the emotion behind the words, the hesitation behind the statement, the inconsistency in someone's story. This gives you clarity. While others are caught up in defending, reacting, or proving themselves, you are collecting information you are learning. And knowledge, when used wisely, becomes power. Remaining silent is especially powerful during conflict. When emotions are high, silence creates space. It stops escalation. It allows you to respond, not react. It gives you the upper hand because you don't lose control of yourself. People expect others to argue back, to justify, to get defensive. But when you remain silent, you disarm that expectation. Silence makes people reveal more than they intended. In your stillness, they begin to expose their assumptions, their insecurities, their true intentions, all while you remain grounded and composed. Strategic silence also protects your energy. Not every situation deserves your words. Not every comment requires a response. Not every insult needs a comeback. When you speak less, you conserve energy that would been wasted on meaningless debates, shallow conversations, or ego-driven arguments. That energy can then be redirected into your growth, your goals, your peace. Silence becomes a shield, guarding your focus from the noise and distractions of the world. Another strength of silence is its unpredictability. People can't figure you out when you don't constantly broadcast your every thought. You maintain a level of mystery, and that mystery gives you leverage. The less people know, the less they can manipulate. The less you reveal, the more power you keep. In silence, you gain control over your narrative. You choose what is known and what remains hidden. You become harder to read, harder to shake, harder to use. That makes you more effective in every area of life. Silence also gives space for internal discipline. When you practice being silent, you train yourself to pause, to think before reacting, to feel without acting impulsively, to reflect before deciding. This inner restraint builds mental strength. While others are outwardly chaotic, you become inwardly centered. That's not passivity, that's composure. The loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. Often, it's the silent one who holds the real control, because they've mastered the art of restraint. Being silent doesn't mean you lack voice. It means you've learned the value of timing. You speak when it counts. You speak with weight. Because your words aren't thrown around carelessly, people begin to listen when you do speak. Silence, when broken with intention, carries more impact than constant noise. It demands attention, it commands respect, and it leaves a lasting impression, not because it fills space, but because it honored it. Finally, silence creates space for strategy. You can't plan, reframe, or elevate if you're constantly talking, reacting, or explaining. In silence, you can think more clearly, calculate your next move, assess the situation, and act with precision. You stop being emotional prey for others. You become deliberate. You understand that not all progress is public, and not all moves should be announced. Silence, in this sense, is not absence. It's presence without distraction. It's power without noise. It's strategy without exposure. So the next time you feel the urge to prove, to argue, or to explain yourself, pause. Let your silence speak. Let your presence carry the weight. Choose the strength that doesn't need validation, the confidence that doesn't beg for attention. In a world addicted to noise, your calm will be unsettling. Your quiet focus will confuse those who haven't mastered themselves, but that's exactly why it works. Silence is not a weakness to overcome, it is a weapon to wield, with precision, with purpose, and with power. The loudest moves are often made in silence. Make yours count.